What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I'm Daniel Oyefusi. That is David Neal. Thanks so much for tuning in. Quick reminder before we start, make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, as well as subscribe to the Miami Herald. Now, both of us, I believe, are not at our normal recording places. I am in Houston ahead of a set of joint practices the Dolphins are holding with the Texans Wednesday and Thursday. They're going to be going at it with the Texans down south ahead of their second preseason game on Saturday night. David Neal, where are you recording from?
I am in Miami in the new Miami Herald offices. Uh and yeah, we're behind me is the newsroom. And yeah, we've been in today, had a couple rounds of an open house, and checking out the new place. And yeah.
Yeah,
One editor did try to say, "Oh, look, it's even better view than the old Herald building, because all that had was water." And we like, slow down.
I was gonna say I didn't get to see the older one, so I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word for it.
Okay, we have Biscayne Bay and Miami Beach in the distance.
Yeah, sorry.
Looking over Flagami and
Yes, it's hard to
parts
top
of
that.
West Dade. No, but it is a great view from the office. You can see a good distance in a few different, kind of 180-degree direction span. And no, it's nice to have a place to work if we don't want to work from home, which people will do to varying degrees.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know how many times I'll be in there, but I mean I'm
Sports
glad
writers,
I'm glad you're making use of it right
yeah,
now.
yeah. Sports writers haven't been in the office for 30 years, so
Yeah, true facts.
yeah.
All right. Getting to the topic at hand, Dolphins and specifically Dolphins in depth. We got a lot to talk about this week, looking back, looking ahead, looking right now, because we've had a lot of news the past couple of days. But we're going to start with the Dolphins' first preseason game, the preseason opener at Hard Rock Stadium against the Atlanta Falcons after a pair of joint practices in Miami Gardens. It wasn't the debut of the 2023 team that I think a lot of people expected, but when you have a lot of your starters sitting out, you have a lot of backups, third stringers, reserve guys, things might not be pretty. And Mike McDaniel, kind of summed that up well in his opening comments, saying in jest, "Did you enjoy that clinic?" 19-3 loss at the hands of the Atlanta Falcons. No Tua Tagovailoa, no Tyreek Hill, no Jalen Waddle, no a lot of the key guys that you're going to see when games are really count. So we got a chance to see Mike White. We got a chance to see Skylar Thompson in the second half, and it wasn't the greatest first impression for the two guys vying to be Tua
Yeah,
Tagovailoa.
it was a clinic, all right. It looked like we need to go to the clinic, the free clinic.
Yeah, it was
That
not
looks
pretty.
that looks
It was
sick.
not pretty. Now Mike White got the start at quarterback. Kind of got first action, first chance to show what he can do. Playing for his hometown team. He had a nice first drive going, but then he forces a pass in the red zone. He gets intercepted in the end zone. End of the drive. He played the entirety of the first half. Finished 9 of 14, 85 yards. That interception, as I mentioned, and was sacked once. Skylar Thompson comes into the game, and it was not pretty. It really wasn't pretty in the second half. The second year player, former seventh round pick, finished 10 of 16, 104 yards, two interceptions, including a pick six late in the game. Sacked four times as well. So he didn't make some great decisions out there, but he also didn't get a lot of help from his blockers. After the game, McDaniel was asked how confident he is in those two backup quarterback options, and he said, "I'm not going to overreact to one game. It's the first preseason game." He said he's liked what Thompson and White have done throughout camp. And it looks like Skylar Thompson is going to get the opportunity to start the second preseason game. So we'll kind of get a chance to see what he does with, Mike White got to play with more of he got to play with Braxton Berrios and River Craycross, some of the more veteran guys. When Skylar Thompson was in their second half, it was a lot of more younger reserve guys in there. So they're going to flip roles in the second preseason game. It looks like we don't know if Tua is going to play, but as it pertains to the backup quarterback, was that a game that gives you reason to pause and question their backup options?
Yeah, I mean, you can't. everything, all the buts and the mitigations aside, you expect at least a solid like one touchdown drive. You know, it's not like the Falcons are out there playing everybody playing their, playing all their ones. So you expect at least one touchdown drive. And that didn't happen. I mean, Mike White, two nice drives, one that ended in an interception and one that ended in it was a 4th and 2
Yeah,
pass
turnover on
knockdown.
downs. The ball gets
Yeah.
deflected and it just kind of
And
just out of reach.
and then there was the other right. The other one was deflection.
Yeah.
The one
Oh,
to
Barrios in the end zone,
Barrios,
where he just wasn't. He
yeah,
was
a
just
little
too
behind
short,
him.
a little behind.
Right, a little behind him. Could have made a better throw. So you're saying two drives that could have been touchdowns ended on tough, bad throws in the third time, pass deflected, which is going to happen. But yeah, you gotta. They didn't score a touchdown. They scored 3 points. They were outscored by Atlanta's defense. You can't. You can try to paint this any way you try to throw any kind of filter you want on it. It doesn't matter. You can put this on Instagram. There's nothing that's going to make that picture look good. You scored 3 points in a preseason game when the other guys weren't playing their best guys either. So is it worrisome? I think it's worrisome if you repeat it, if there's a pattern. It's slightly concerning, but maybe they, maybe they both peed the bed the same night. It just happens. So, let's see what happens, in the second preseason game. If the same thing happens, then you're kind of gritting your teeth and hoping that Tua shows up for 17 games.
I mean, you're already hoping that, but yeah, I mean,
Well, right, but you're really hoping because you're not thinking, okay, we have a backup we can work, we can win with. That's when they had Teddy Bridgewater last year, they at least had the thought, okay, we have an experienced NFL backup who has been a starter in this league, and yeah, we can win with him. Whether they did or not is kind of beside the point. They at least thought they could. You get two straight preseason games. You get a second straight preseason games like what you saw last Friday night. You're not going into the season thinking that. You're thinking, boy, we lose our quarterback, and that's how many L's were behind the ball already.
Yeah, so I rewatched the game, all 22, as well as the normal TV copy, and I didn't leave my second watching of the game feeling as negative about the quarterback situation as initially when the game ended. When you first look at the game, the final box score 19-3, the stats aren't great. To Mike McDaniel's point, he said the first half the operation was generally smooth. I believe they had 4 offensive drives in the first half. 3 of them ended in the red zone. Obviously, most of them didn't end up with any points. Turn the ball over. You want to clean that up. I think the most egregious, the 2 most egregious parts of Mike White's kind of first half was the interception in the red zone, where it's like you just can't throw that ball. He said that he thought it was a good read, but you just can't throw that ball in that type of congestion and put the ball in harm's way. I thought that was just inexcusable. And then the pass to Barrios, where he had a step on the on the cornerback, and if you lead him, that's 6.
That's a touchdown.
And the complexion of your first half looks a lot different.
Right.
But generally, like when I watched, like in between the play, like not just looking at like the final results, but play by play, I saw like a lot of good things. Like I saw for the most part somebody that looks like they can operate this offense in a pinch. And I always say, and even when they signed Mike White, I think you acknowledge that as well, is if knock on wood, God forbid, Tua goes down, he's not, and I wrote about this, he's not he or Skylar Thompson is not throwing to Chris Coleman and David Davis, and some of the guys that are out there. No disrespect to them, but they're not the Dolphins headliners, not the Dolphins starters. If
Yeah.
they're pressed into action, they're going to be throwing a Tyreek Hill. They're going to be throwing a Jalen Waddle. They're going to have Teron Armstead blocking for them. They're going to have Robert Hunt and Connor Williams blocking for them. They're going to have Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson carrying the ball for them. So obviously, the things around them are probably going to elevate them. And Mike McDaniel said that as well. He said there were a lot of situations where guys may not have been doing their jobs. Like some of the blocking in the second half just wasn't like it just wasn't. It's just not cutting it.
Right.
So I feel like Skyler did not make good decisions in the second half. His ball placement was a little off. But there were just some like clear communication issues with the offensive line, with him and the offensive line, and sometimes the wide receivers, where he just didn't have a chance. So I really am interested to see him get the first opportunity to play, whether that's starting the game, whether that's being the first quarterback after Tua. I'd like to see him kind of play with some of those guys who are closer to the bubble or maybe on the right side of the bubble and are more established guys. But certainly in the first half, I mean, Mike White drove them down the field on 3 occasions. You didn't get any points. I think that in a real game, Mike McDaniel settles for field goals. Most of those, like the interception on the first drive was, on like 2nd and 9 or whatever. So, all right. But he went for it twice at the second time at the end of the half. I'd like to think that Mike McDaniel would probably take the points there, and then maybe it looks a little better. Maybe like that changes the way Skylar Thompson plays the second half and whatnot. But for the most part, I thought Mike White like operated the offense outside of the turnover. I thought he operated the offense, and it looked like an NFL offense. It wasn't what we saw a lot of last year when Tua went down, and they just could not move the ball. The operation was bad. You're having the delay of game penalties. Like I didn't see a lot of that with Mike White. And I guess that's really a sign. I mean, right now, I think he's definitely, after the game, I said he's kind of the number 2 backup by default. But even in training camp the past couple weeks, he's been building and he's looked like the better quarterback, honestly. So again, it's still far from decided. It looks like Skyler's going to get an opportunity to play first. But in terms of Michael White, I thought that he looked like a competent backup, if that makes sense.
I agree. He did a lot of things well to get the ball down the field. But at some point, you kind of stick the ball in the end zone.
I know you gotta you
gotta finish the drive.
You can show for
you gotta finish the drive. And that wasn't there in the area when things get a little tighter.
Yeah.
And during the regular season, you probably maybe take the field goal. I don't know about both times. I think one of those times he probably does go for it. The way the analytics folks are these days, that with the percentages I'm going for it, and obviously the payoff being greater, being more than twice the payoff if you're successful is twice as much if you kick the field goal. Yeah. So I think that that would have been handled similarly. Like I say, just the quarterback, Joe Theismann used to love to say, the quarterback is actually the most dependent person on the field.
Yeah.
Because he depends on the line to do their job. He depends on the receivers to run their jobs and make the catches. The running in pass protection, the running backs to protect properly. In the run game to everybody. He's looked at, the offensive success is often looked at solely on him when he's like, okay, yeah, I'm I may be the CEO, but I'm relying on a lot of people to do their jobs. And so that's completely valid that you might have receivers not doing their jobs. Your protection is not going to be the same. Still in all, once there are certain things once you section off, okay, this is your job. I don't know that, I don't know if they get passing grades. I don't, I think we're talking, C minus.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't I mean, there's a lot to correct there for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, and
Um,
that's summer school. You get stuck in summer school for that performance. If
yeah,
that was a semester, but again, is this a pattern? Let's take a look at this week and see what happens. If it's not a pattern, then we move on. And
yeah,
but yeah, it wasn't. And taking training camp in total, you know, the defense had a little bit of an edge. That was not the preseason game you wanted to see out of your offense, even though that's it. Really wasn't your first team offense out there.
yeah. I was gonna say, I think one of the more also what maybe was kind of discouraging for Dolphins fans watching it, because obviously then fans aren't at every single training camp practice, but the various reports, including at the Herald, has been that the defense has definitely had a significant edge over the offense. So again, for that to kind of carry over to the game, kind of gives you maybe a reason for worry. I would say that I think that the offense definitely is experimenting with a lot. I think they experimented with a lot in the opener as well. It's going to be interesting to see how much of that carries over into the regular season, or are these really like legitimate struggles that we're seeing right now? Again, they're going to have two practices, Wednesday, Thursday against the Texans. Mike McDaniel said that there's a good chance that Skyler starts or plays before Mike White, so he'll get an opportunity to see what he can do in the first half with some more established guys, and then we'll see how they progress as well. All right, we're gonna take a short break, but when we come back on the other side of things, the Dalvin Cook saga is finally over. It went on for months, but it came to a conclusion on Monday. But he's not returning home for a homecoming. Instead, he'll be facing the Dolphins twice this upcoming season. We're gonna react to that and whether that's a big deal or not. Stay locked with us. We'll be back soon. What's going on, everybody? Still here on the Dolphins In Depth podcast, talking all things Dolphins with David Neal. Now, in the first half, we recapped Dolphins preseason opener, our reactions to the play of the two quarterbacks vying to back up Tua Tagovailoa. Now, in the second half, we're going to talk about a player who was very heavily speculated to be a member of the Dolphins, but instead he joined their division rival. I'm talking about running back Miami native Dalvin Cook. According to reports, he is signing a one-year deal up to $8.6 million with the New York Jets. He took a visit up there a couple of weeks back, flirted with the possibility of coming home, going to New York. Now it's official. He'll be joining the Jets. The saga has come to an end. I mean, the Dolphins were linked to Dalvin Cook way back in the offseason when they tried to trade for him. Then when he was released, again, there was a lot of public flirting, kind of asking to be courted by the Dolphins. He said it's a perfect fit. He said it'd be a Cinderella story. Instead, it could be a horror story now because he's joining their divisional rival, and he's gonna play them twice in the upcoming season. From what I understand and what's been reported at the Herald, the Dolphins did give him an offer, but the offer was a couple $1 million short of what he eventually received from the Jets. I know it's up to $8.6 million with incentives, but even the offer on the table from the Dolphins didn't come very close to that from what I understand. So kudos to Dalvin Cook. He got the deal that he was seeking. Doesn't get to come home. The New York taxes might shave off a lot of that, but it looks like he might be able to be the lead back in New York with Aaron Rodgers and that revamped team. It's interesting. I know a lot of Dolphins fans are kind of reacting to this news and criticize. The quickest thing to do is criticize the GM and say, "What are we doing?" and whatnot. But it was very clear early on how the Dolphins felt about this situation. McDaniel was asked about Dalvin Cook the day before he was released by the Vikings. And he was asked about, investing a lot in a running back, investing a lot of money in a running back. And he said, hey, every position is different. Every player is different. It's case by case. But it has to work for both sides. I think there was a lot of things at play that kind of prevented this from happening. First off, the Dolphins just didn't value Dalvin Cook as much as the Jets did. I mean, that's very clear. You give somebody $8.6 million and you're offering more around $4 million plus extensives. It shows that you don't view them as the priority that the other team does. He clearly wanted to be, and he said it. He wanted to be a place that gives him the rock. He gets that in New York because Brees Hall was just activated off the PUP list like today or yesterday. So he gets an opportunity.
And even if he wasn't,
I mean, yeah,
they were going to, they signed Dalvin. They were going to give him the ball.
exactly. In Miami, you got. I mean, we talked about it a lot. They have a group of running backs who aren't flashy, who aren't sexy, who aren't household names per se. But Mike McDaniel trusts them and believes in them. Whether that's Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson. They just drafted Devon Achane, and he's looked really good. And then I've said it before. I mean, you're gonna have to cede touches to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I mean, that is no matter who you brought in, even if you brought in Dalvin Cook, those two wide receivers were going to be the focal point of this offense. Does the Dalvin Cook move like sway things, like completely in the AFC East? Not really. I mean, if you were a team that thought that the Jets were already better than that already thought the Jets were better than the Dolphins, I mean, does he make them that much better? I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, they have issues on the offensive line. There are questions. There are people out there that have noted that his production, his kind of efficiency has declined over the past couple of years. If you view it the other way and you think the Dolphins are better than the Jets before this move, I mean, are you really going to launch the Jets above the Dolphins because they added a running back? I mean, we've seen the NFL where the running back position isn't as valued, doesn't have as big of an impact in the NFL. I'm not saying that it's not important, but I don't think this really I don't think it's an earth-shattering move. It's a big move in name, kind of similar to Ezekiel Elliott. Well, maybe I won't say no because I think that Dalvin Cook has.
No, he's got more left than
Zeke. He's got more than Zeke. But it's more. I feel like it's more name than like legitimate substance. He's gonna make them better, but I don't know if he changes life for them as it pertains to the AFC East. The landscape of the AFC East.
I disagree. I think while I understand the Dolphins, completely understand the Dolphins approach, the fact that you have, Aaron Rodgers still has something left.
I agree with you on that.
And you give him a running back who Dalvin Cook's got something left. Now, maybe Dalvin Cook is not the Dalvin Cook of 3 years ago, but he's still a very, very good running back. And you have, that this just makes the Jets more of a threat on offense, which is really their problem last year. I mean, if they got anything from their offense the last few games, that they would have been in the playoffs. And that's assuming their defense can play as well as can repeat their performance from last year, which can be a big assumption. But I think that still looks like a very good defense, even if you say, okay, let's.
If they're not top 5, maybe they're top 10, top 12 this year, and that's good enough with the expected improvement.
That's good enough if you have a decent offense, and that offense can be more than decent now.
Yeah,
and so are they better than the Dolphins? I don't know, but boy, it's
like this. There was not.
I was hard pressed to think of the Jets. I thought the Jets being right there with the Dolphins. I don't know if this makes. I just think it does make them better, and does it make them better than the Dolphins?
You're splitting hairs. I mean, it's like again. I don't think it. I just don't think it changes life for their offense. And truthfully, I mean, you can run back the tape. I didn't think Dalvin Cook would change life for the Dolphins offense.
The Dolphins, right?
So again, I think that
Right. So
it's like
you,
do I think do I think Dalvin Cook is good for like an extra win? I don't know that. If I thought the Jets were a 9-8 team before Dalvin Cook, I think they're like a 10-11 win team now. I just don't know that because again, just the nature
it,
of the running back position and the questions on the offensive line, it's similar to the questions I have with the Dolphins. You know, some of their problems on the offensive line and how much a good to potentially elite running back really changes that. I'm not
it can
sure.
hide that a really good experienced running back can hide some deficiencies in an offensive line. Now, that offensive line, it will, obviously your running game theoretically does start with your offensive line. But we've seen situations where a really good running back can hide some deficiencies in the line and turn, what would have been a 1 or 2 yard loss into a 4 yard gain. And, can do that regularly enough that, you get away with having those deficiencies in the line. I think Dalvin Cook does that better than any running back on either roster. I don't think there's a question of that. Although, the Jets young running backs looked pretty good last year until
Yeah, Brees
they
Hall
got
may have
hurt.
been rookie of the year, if
Yeah.
offensive rookie of the year, if not for that ACL.
And
Yeah.
so I just think that this does make them better.
Will
And
the Dolphins regret not signing Dalvin Cook? That's that because it's one thing for him to not sign with the team, but to stay in house and stay in the division.
stay in the same
That's another
division.
thing.
I don't think the
think they're
Dolphins will
gonna look
regret
back.
signing. I don't think the Dolphins I don't think the Dolphins will regret not signing Dalvin Cook. Could the Dolphins regret the Jets sign Dalvin Cook? That's entirely possible.
That's true. That's a
That's a
good
different.
semantics right there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it might be split hairs, but it's a difference, and that's the difference in I think the way this could play out. But yeah, I mean he gives you one more thing to really worry about on that deep. And when things it's not like Aaron Rodgers doesn't know how to play in cold weather, for Pete's sake. Um, but the winds of the Meadowlands, even in the MetLife Stadium, even the Giant Stadium replacement can get awful strange and can get awful funny and strange in November, December, and January. And that is when you really would like to have somebody like Dalvin Cook in your backfield, healthy and able to carry the rock a bit. So
Yeah, I mean that's another thing again. I mean, I think last year was the first year that he played the entirety of a regular season. I think he had surgery for a shoulder injury that was kind of lingering over the past couple of years. I know he's been wearing that kind of harness. I don't think he's gonna be ready. I mean, I think there was a report from Adam Schefter that he's not gonna be like hitting the ground running. He just had a baby, so congrats to him on that. But then I think he's still gotta heal up that shoulder. So he's supposed to be ready for the regular season, but it's not like he's going to be at practice later this week, doing everything 100%. So there's that. Obviously, the Dolphins have some injury questions with them as well. Raheem Mostert has been a guy that's been nicked up. He missed a couple games. He missed a playoff game last year. So it goes both ways. I do think the Dolphins are poised to run the ball better. We've talked about this before. Like Daniel said himself, a lot of times you just need to commit to running the ball. The raw stats aren't great, but when you look at Mostert and Wilson, especially in the second half of the year, again, we said it before, they're averaging close to 5 yards a carry. They're not getting a lot of negative yards. So I think that there is potential for them to improve, just kind of internally improve. A-Chain looked good in the preseason. Myles Gaskin, I mean, he had 57 yards. He had some burst. He's fighting for a roster spot right now. I think there is especially if they get improvements on the offensive line, and I think that they will, because Austin Jackson has looked better. Isaiah Wynn is pushing Liam Eichenberg for a starting spot. I think the offensive line will be better. I think that they will make those internal improvements to the running game. Will they regret not signing Dalvin Cook? I don't think so. I think they could have went either way with it. I think that, it's obvious that they viewed him as a luxury. And you can make the argument that, you've kind of invested, not over invested, but you invested so much capital and money into top tier guys. Why not get somebody like that that can maybe give you that little bump, that marginal bump? They decided that they had a price point and they wanted to stick to it. So now we'll see. A couple months from now, we'll see. We'll either be praising the Dolphins for not making that move, or we'll be
We going,
kind of shaking our head, questioning why they
we
didn't
wrong.
take a talent kid. So we'll see what happens with them. Obviously, again, the Dolphins and Jets are facing off twice. First on Black Friday, the first ever Black Friday game on Prime Video, and then the Jets are coming over to South Florida a couple weeks later to play the Dolphins. So end of season clashes. Both of those games will have major playoff implications, which will make this storyline even that much juicier. So I can't wait for that. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, as well as subscribe to the Miami Herald. I will be out
that one right there.
That one. I will be out here in Houston all week for joint practices, for the game, enjoying some barbecue, but working first. We're gonna have coverage on Wednesday. We're gonna have coverage on Thursday. Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa. I got some really cool features coming out soon. So definitely stay locked on the Miami Herald website. Follow me on Twitter at Daniel Oyefusi for your latest Dolphins updates. We'll be back next week to recap the week of joint practices and the Dolphins' second preseason game against the Texans. But until then, you guys take care.
Better score.
See you.
All right.